All right, we're going to get right into part two of our two-part plant lesson. The other day we learned about some of the different parts of the plants. Let's just do a real quick run through to remind you of some of those. Had a little diagram of just some of the basics: roots, stem, shoot, fruit, flowers, leaves, and so on, and just some of the essential functions of some of these things. We got the xylem and the phloem carrying water, minerals, sugars, and so on up and down the plant, and the roots anchoring, absorbing, and also sometimes great food storage containers. The stem providing support and carries most of the tissues. Also can be a food source. Things like celery, parts of broccoli, things like that are stems that we eat. And then, of course, leaves are the solar collectors do the bulk of the photosynthesis for the plant, leaves or needles in the case of the conifers, pine trees, and so on. And then we spent most of our time talking about flowers and the different parts. And you guys worked on the gizmo activity, identifying the parts of the flower, and then also how reproduction takes place with that process called pollination. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon, talking about plant growth. So, a couple good vocabulary words for you. One of the plant growth patterns that plants exhibit is called geo or gravitropism. So, first of all, a tropism refers to a growth pattern. Geo, referring to the earth, or gravi, as in gravity, it's the plant's growth in response to gravity. Plants always know which way is up, which is very important if you're in the seedling stage. So you can see this little diagram or this picture over here. You got three seeds oriented in different directions, and it's not random inside of a seed which cells become the roots and which become the shoot. It's predetermined which cells will become the root. If a seed were planted in the ground upside down and the root grew up and the shoot grew down, we would have a problem. The plant would not survive. But as you can see, no matter which way I orient the seed, the root, this one's really dramatic, it's completely upside down. The root starts to grow a little bit and it realizes that's the wrong way and it starts growing down. And not too visible at this point, but you can see curling around and will eventually grow upward is going to be the shoot. So they know which way is up and which way is down. Plants produce a hormone, a growth chemical called an auxin, AUXIN, and those chemicals within the plant help to, well, if gravity is pulling down on that chemical in the cells, that's telling those cells which way is up, which way is down. So whichever part of the cell, if you can picture like a bucket with water, quarter full of water, and no matter how, or a container, say a closed jar, no matter which way I were to hold that, the water is always going to be at the bottom of that container. And that's kind of the way these auxins work. So the plant cells can actually respond to where those chemicals are in the cell, tells it which way is up, which way is down. Making sure the shoot goes towards light and the roots grow down towards water and minerals. Another kind of similar growth pattern is called phototropism. So again, tropism, growth pattern. Prefix photo refers to light. Plants know where the light is. So in the similar way, is if you were to, this was probably grown in a box of some sort with a light on one side. So if you were to grow a plant in an environment like that, the plant shoots would grow towards the light. They would know where that light is. I don't have a slide for it, but this word maybe makes sense. A hydrotropism. The roots would also, meanwhile, if we had a body of water, say 20 yards away from this plant over here, like a lake or a river, those roots would sense which way water is and they would actually grow towards the water. So we've got the geotropism or gravitropism and phototropisms. So there's different kinds of growth patterns. Plants know which way to go. They're pretty smart. Another growth pattern or seasonal changes that you'll see in plants is some plants are what you call long day plants. So these are referring more to the flower blooming than anything else. Long day plants, they respond to a chemical. So we have auxins, which cause plants to grow in various directions. There's another group of chemicals or plant hormones called gibberellins. Kind of a funny word. But these are hormones or chemicals in the plant that cause the plant to respond to things like the day length, time of year, and so on, telling the plant when to blossom, when to fruit, when to go dormant, those kinds of things. So a long day plant is a plant where the plants bloom as as the days get longer. So I'm sure you're noticing now, it's May 9th. Days are getting longer, and there are certain flowers that are starting to bloom that you'll see blooming in the summer and the spring. And on the opposite time of the year, we actually have what are called short day plants. Plants that bloom as the days get shorter in the fall and the winter. So if you were a gardener and you wanted flowers in your garden year round, you would have a mix of long day and short day plants. The long day plants being kind of more dormant in the fall and winter, and the short day plants more dormant in the summer and spring, and they would just kind of take turns blooming in your garden. Little longer term seasonal changes. We have some trees that are evergreens, and the word is pretty self-explanatory. These are trees that don't change much. So the pine tree is usually what we think of, trees that are evergreen. So regardless of the length of the day and the time of the year, these trees are going to be green. So you go up to the mountains, go to Mammoth or something like that, and there's snow all around. A lot of the trees will go dormant, but those pine trees stay green. The needles will stay green throughout the year. So evergreens, thus perfect for Christmas trees. And then not so much around here, but we have in our country, mostly in the back east and the Midwest, deciduous forests or entire forests. As the days get shorter, the trees will lose their leaves as the days shorten. And it's just there's a signal, again, those gibberellins, those chemicals, will tell the plant that the tree that the amount of daylight per each day is no longer sufficient to keep that tree alive, and so they start to lose their leaves. They lose their ability to do photosynthesis, but as a trade-off, they basically go to sleep. They become dormant. If they were to try to stay alive with those short days, they would end up actually killing themselves. So they go dormant, they lose their leaves, and then come springtime, as the days lengthen, they will start to bud again. You start seeing those leaves. All right. So after this, watch. I've got a video that's going to give us some specific instructions on an activity on the Gizmo website, and we'll be seeing and talking to you soon. All right.